Then go, my love, she whispered, her voice trembling. Go and be the king you were born to be. I will always love you, but I cannot be the one to hold you back from your destiny. In a small village nestled between rolling hills and winding streams, there lived a farmer named Chika and his daughter, Azuka. Chika had inherited the farm from his father and worked tirelessly day in and day out to ensure a bountiful harvest each season. His daughter, Azuka, was the light of his life, a beautiful young woman with a heart of gold. Azuka spent her days helping her father on the farm, tending to the crops and animals with a gentle touch. She took great pride in her work and found joy in the simple pleasures of country life. In the evenings, she would often sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink. One day, as Azuka was gathering eggs from the chicken coop, she heard the sound of hoofs approaching. She looked up to see a magnificent white horse pulling a grand carriage. The carriage came to a stop in front of the farm, and out stepped a handsome young man dressed in fine clothes. "Greetings, miss," he said, his voice smooth and charming. "I am Prince Nnamdi, and I seem to have lost my way. Would you be so kind as to point me in the direction of the palace?" Azuka was instantly captivated by the prince's striking features and regal bearing. She stammered out directions, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment at her own clumsiness. The prince smiled warmly. "Thank you, miss. And may I ask your name?" "Azuka," she replied, her heart racing. "Well, Azuka, it's a pleasure to meet you. I hope our paths will cross again someday." With a tip of his hat, the prince climbed back into the carriage and rode off, leaving Azuka in a daze. For days, she couldn't stop thinking about the handsome prince and the brief encounter they had shared. As fate would have it, their paths did cross again, and again, and again. Prince Nnamdi found himself drawn to the charming farm girl, captivated by her beauty, intelligence, and kind spirit. Azuka, in turn, fell deeply in love with the prince, despite the vast differences in their social status and way of life. Their love blossomed in secret, stolen moments in the fields and whispered conversations under the stars. But they knew that their relationship could never be openly acknowledged, for the prince was expected to marry a woman of noble birth and produce an heir to the throne. One day, as Azuka was tending to the garden, she heard the sound of hoofs approaching. It was Prince Nnamdi, his face etched with worry. "Azuka, my love," he said, dismounting from his horse. "I have something to tell you." Azuka's heart sank, sensing the gravity of his words. "My father, the king, has arranged for me to marry Princess Chinyo of the neighboring kingdom. The wedding is in a fortnight." Tears sprang to Azuka's eyes as she realized the implications of his words. Their love was doomed, a fleeting moment in time that could never be more. "I don't want to marry her, Azuka," the prince continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to be with you, but I have no choice. My duty is to my kingdom and my people." Azuka nodded, understanding the weight of his responsibilities. She knew that she could never ask him to abandon his throne, his people, his legacy. As much as it pained her, she knew what she had to do. "Then go, my love," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Go and be the king you were born to be. I will always love you, but I cannot be the one to hold you back from your destiny." Prince Nnamdi pulled Azuka into a fierce embrace, his tears mingling with hers. They held each other for what felt like an eternity, knowing that this would be their last moment together. With a heavy heart, the prince climbed back onto his horse and rode away, leaving Azuka standing alone in the garden, her heart shattered into a million pieces. In the days that followed, Azuka threw herself into her work on the farm, finding solace in the familiar rhythms of country life. She knew that she would never forget the prince, but she also knew that she had to move on. Years passed, and Azuka grew into a strong, independent woman. She met a kind-hearted farmer named Nonso and fell in love once more. They married and built a life together, raising a family on the farm that Azuka had grown to love. One day, as Azuka was tending to the chickens, she heard the sound of hoofs approaching. She looked up to see a magnificent white horse pulling a grand carriage. The carriage came to a stop in front of the farm, and out stepped a regal-looking man dressed in fine clothes. Azuka's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the man as none other than King Nnamdi, the prince she had loved so long ago. He approached her, his eyes filled with a mixture of joy and sorrow. "Azuka," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I would see you again." Azuka smiled, her own eyes brimming with tears. "And I you, your majesty." They talked for hours, catching up on the years that had passed. Nnamdi told Azuka about his reign as king, the challenges he had faced, and the triumphs he had achieved. Azuka, in turn, shared her own story, the love she had found with Nonso and the family they had built together. As the sun began to set, Nnamdi took Azuka's hand in his own. "Azuka, I want you to know that I have never forgotten you. You will always hold a special place in my heart." Azuka squeezed his hand, her own heart swelling with a bittersweet mixture of love and nostalgia. "And you in mine, your majesty. But we both know that our paths were never meant to cross again." Nnamdi nodded, understanding the truth in her words. With a heavy heart, he climbed back into the carriage and rode away, leaving Azuka standing in the fading light, a smile on her face and a lifetime of memories in her heart. As Azuka watched the carriage disappear over the horizon, she knew that her love for Nnamdi had been a fleeting moment in time, a beautiful dream that could never be realized. But she also knew that it had shaped her into the woman she was today, a woman who had learned to love deeply, to sacrifice selflessly, and to find joy in the simple pleasures of life. And as she turned and walked back to the farmhouse, where her husband and children waited for her, years passed, and Azuka's family grew. Her children, Nkem and Chidi, were the pride and joy of her life. They grew up on the farm, learning the value of hard work and the beauty of the land. Azuka made sure to instill in them the same values that had guided her own life: kindness, compassion, and a deep appreciation for the simple things. One day, as Nkem and Chidi were helping their father in the fields, they noticed a grand carriage approaching. They watched in awe as it came to a stop in front of their home, and out stepped a regal-looking man dressed in fine clothes. "Greetings, young ones," the man said, his voice kind and gentle. "I am King Nnamdi, and I am looking for your mother, Azuka." Nkem and Chidi were stunned, having heard the stories of their mother's past love affair with the Prince Nnamdi. They quickly fetched their mother, who came rushing out to greet the unexpected visitor. "Your Majesty," Azuka said, her voice trembling with emotion. "What brings you here?" Nnamdi smiled warmly. "I have come to see you, Azuka. And to meet your family." Azuka was taken aback, but she welcomed the king into her home with open arms. Over the course of the afternoon, Nnamdi spent time with Azuka's family, marveling at the life she had built for herself. He played with the children, shared stories with Nonso, and even helped with the chores around the farm. As the sun began to set, Nnamdi pulled Azuka aside. "Azuka, I want you to know that I am truly happy for you. You have built a wonderful life here, surrounded by love and family." Azuka nodded, tears in her eyes. "And I for you, your Majesty. You have become a great king, just as I knew you would." Nnamdi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, ornate box. "I want you to have this," he said, handing it to Azuka. "It's a token of my appreciation for all that you have done for me, and for the love that we once shared." Azuka opened the box to find a beautiful necklace, adorned with a single, sparkling gem. She gasped, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Your Majesty, I cannot accept this." Nnamdi placed his hand on her arm. "Please, Azuka. It would mean the world to me if you would wear it, as a reminder of the love we once shared, and the lives we have built since then." Azuka nodded, tears streaming down her face. She clasped the necklace around her neck, feeling the weight of its meaning. With one final embrace, Nnamdi climbed back into his carriage and rode away, leaving Azuka standing in the fading light, a smile on her face and a lifetime of memories in her heart. As Azuka watched the carriage disappear over the horizon, she knew that her love for Nnamdi had been a fleeting moment in time, a beautiful dream that could never be realized. But she also knew that it had shaped her into the woman she was today, a woman who had learned to love deeply, to sacrifice selflessly, and to find joy in the simple pleasures of life. And as she turned and walked back to the farmhouse, where her family waited for her, she knew that her love for Nonso was just as real, just as powerful, and just as worthy of cherishing. For in the end, true love is not about grand gestures or fairy tale endings, but about finding happiness in the here and now, and making the most of every moment we are given.